Hello, good morning. We are very glad and grateful to have the opportunity to present our investigation. We are going to talk about perceptions of critical thinking among university students training to become elementary education teachers. We are María José Goles, Marco Anamalón, Agustina Duarte, and María Jesús Romero from Universidad de los Andes, Chile. This study analyzes the perceptions and development of critical thinking among first and third year elementary education teacher students at Universidad de los Andes, Chile. We used a qualitative approach grounded in the methodological framework of Corbin and Strauss. We identified structural barriers, key pedagogical strategies, and longitudinal differences in critical thinking skills. The findings reveal that first-year students mainly operate at the basic levels of understanding and application according to Bloom's taxonomy, while third-year students progress toward higher taxonomic levels. However, these advancements face challenges, and the study underscores the need for structural reforms to integrate more flexible and effective pedagogical approaches. Background: critical thinking is an essential skill in contemporary education, especially in the context of teacher training. Recognized for its multidimensional nature, critical thinking enables individuals to analyze, evaluate, and make informed decisions in complex contexts. Within initial teacher education, its significance lies in enhancing professionalism, facilitating the resolution of complex problems, and promoting meaningful learning among students. Despite its importance, initial teacher education programs in Chile face challenges in equipping future teachers with effective tools to apply critical thinking in real-world contexts. These shortcomings are linked to standardized curricular structures, a lack of specific resources, and a traditional context-focused approach, hindering the development of a flexible and contextualized school curriculum. This study focuses on elementary education students with specializations from the Universidad de los Andes, an institution that promotes an integral education model based on the development of critical competences, reflection, research, and contextualized pedagogical practice. This approach aims to prepare professionals capable of addressing the current challenges of Chilean educational system. Objectives: the general objective is to explore pedagogy students' perceptions of the development and implementation of critical thinking in their initial teacher education. The specific objectives are three: to identify first and third year pedagogy students' perceptions of the concept of critical thinking, to explore the barriers perceived by students in implementing critical thinking strategies in the classroom during educational practice, and to compare students' perceptions at different academic levels. Methodology and data collection. A qualitative methodological approach based on Corbin and Strauss grounded was adopted. Participants were intentionally selected, including elementary education students with specializations from the first and third years at Universidad de los Andes, Chile. Data collection was carried out through two focus groups, each lasting 60 minutes, involving a total of 22 students divided according to their academic level. Also, a non-probabilistic purposive sampling method was implemented. The results analysis was conducted following the three stages of grounded theory of Corbin and Strauss, allowing for the synthesis and interpretations of the collected data. The emerging categories identified in this analysis are grounded in the theoretical concepts that highlight the key dimensions of critical thinking. Cognitive processes include skills such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, which are essential for addressing complex problems and making informed decisions in pedagogical contexts. Critical attitudes refer to personal dispositions such as curiosity, reasoned doubt, and open-mindedness, which foster reflection and constructive questioning. Social competencies encompass collaboration, debate, and effective communication skills, which are fundamental for implementing critical thinking in group and educational settings. Results analysis, emerging categories. In open coding stage, key concepts were identified by differentiation patterns and repetitions in the interventions. The analysis of the transcripts resulted in 55 interventions coded into three emerging categories. Cognitive processes represent 45% of the interventions, conceptualizing critical thinking as a fundamental analytical and evaluative process. Critical attitudes accounted for 33%, emphasizing the promotion of reflection and constructive questioning. Social competencies represented 22%, less frequent but essential for implementing critical thinking in collaborative contexts. In axial coding stage, connections were established among the open codes, grouping them into intermediate categories to identify significant relationships among the concepts. Cognitive processes and critical attitudes. These dimensions were linked 20 times, highlighting that reflection feeds analysis while critical evaluation generates new inquiries. Critical attitudes and social competences related 15 times, showing how reflective dispositions create a safe space for debate and collaboration in teacher training. Social competences and cognitive processes associated 10 times, emphasizing that group interaction fosters analysis and synthesis of information in real-world situations. Finally, in selective coding stage and to integrate a coherent theoretical narrative, the intermediate categories were included within a central framework. Critical thinking as a transformative axis in teacher training. This framework connects cognitive, attitudinal, and social dimensions, underscoring their relevance in pedagogical practice. Cognitive processes associated with analysis and synthesis tasks, facilitating pedagogical decision-making and addressing complex classroom problems. Critical attitudes linked to curiosity and reasoned doubt, promoting a culture of reflection and driving constructive questioning. Social competences, such as debate and collaboration, foster innovation and collective learning, mediating critical thinking in group contexts.
Results. Perception of critical thinking. The analysis of the collected data reveals how pedagogy students conceptualize and apply critical thinking in their initial teacher education. Conceptualization of critical thinking. Cognitive processes. Identifies as the central axis of critical thinking, emphasizing skills such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. These skills, mentioned in 45% of the interventions, were described as essential for breaking down complex information into understandable elements, evaluating the validity and relevance of evidence-based argument, and generating original ideas or solutions from diverse information. Critical attitudes, such as curiosity, reason, doubt, and open-mindedness, were described as a fundamental for challenging preconceptions and enriching teaching practice. They account for 33% of the intervention, standing out as essential dispositions for fostering a culture of reflection in teaching. Social competencies, including collaboration and debate, were highlighted as a mediator of critical thinking in group settings, being mentioned in 22% of the intervention. These competencies were described as crucial for applying critical thinking in collaborative activities such as group project and problem solving. Comparative analysis. The analysis showed that 70% of first-year students have a general understanding of the concept of critical thinking, while this figure increased to 90% in third-year students. This increase reflects progress in the ability to contextualize critical thinking within teaching practice. Third-year participants demonstrate a more nuanced understanding, linking critical thinking to pedagogical tools and social dynamics. Practical application. Only 40% of first-year students manage to apply critical thinking to practical tasks, compared to 80% of third-year students who emphasize the utility of these strategies in addressing complex problems and designing solutions. This highlights an initial gap in training that diminished due exposed to pedagogical strategies provided throughout their education. Identify barriers. Structural barriers such as rigid curricula and insufficient teaching modeling were identified by 50% of first-year students, a figure that slightly increased to 60% among third-year students. This suggests that more experienced students are more aware of institutional limitations, potentially due to the direct exposure to teaching practices in real classroom contexts. Three barriers impacting participants' teaching practice in promoting critical thinking in the classroom were identified. Rigid curricula. 40% of students identify rigidity in student plans and programs that leave little room for critical exploration. Lack of resource. 25% of students report a lack of resources in practice settings, hindering the implementation of reflective and collaborative activities in the classroom. Insufficient teaching modeling. 35% of participants perceive a scarcity of teaching modeling during their university training, noting that instructors tend to focus on theoretical content without demonstrating critical thinking in practice. Integrated Central Framework. Critical thinking emerged as a multifaceted and transformative skill structured around three key dimensions: cognitive processes, critical attitudes, and social competences. This central model underscores the importance of integrating these dimensions to enhance the impact of teacher training.
The interaction among these three dimensions created an integrated model that positioned critical thinking as a central axis in teacher training. Three predominant relationships are identified: cognitive processes and critical attitude. Participants noted that reflection and evaluation are engaged by personal disposition toward constructive questioning, enabling future teachers to analyze complex situations and make informed decisions. Critical attitude and social competences. Students describe how open mindedness facilitates debate and collaboration, enriching group perspective and fostering a culture of shared learning. Social competences and cognitive processes. Collaborative environments highlight an essential, offering opportunities to apply, analyze, and synthesis to concrete problems. This relationship strengthens teachers' ability to effectively integrate theory and practice. Thus, critical thinking is configured as a set of interrelated skills that connect cognitive processes, reflective attitude, and social competences, positioning it as an essential competency in teacher training. This integrated model connects analytical skill, reflective dispositions, and group competences, facilitating the development of more effective pedagogical strategies and fostering innovation in educational setting and to address current challenges. Discussion finding of the study the finding of this study provide a comprehensive and nuanced understanding of how participants conceptualize and applied critical thinking in their teacher training. Analyzing the result in the light of existing literature revealed that critical thinking is not only perceived as a set individual skill but also as a deeply social and contextual process. This discussion triangulating the finding with key theories and previous studies identify convergences, tensions, and gaps. Perception of critical thinking as a cognitive and social process. One of the main contribution of this study is the identification of critical thinking as a dual process, cognitive and social. Participant emphasizes that skills such as analysis, synthesis, and evaluation are essential for critical reflection, aligning with definition proposed by Facione and Ennis. Fashioning emphasizes that this skill enables individual to make informed decisions, while Ennis highlights that the critical thinking included a reflective disposition toward informed judgment. Additionally, the findings reflect the social dimension of critical thinking is see as key elements for its development. This approach allied with Vygotsky, who argues that learning and thinking emerge through social interaction within zone of proximal development. Paul and Elder also emphasize that critical reflection is more effective when developed in collaborating environments that allow for the exploration of diverse perspectives. The study reveals a discrepancy between the evaluation of critical thinking and its effective teaching. Although participants acknowledge its importance, they also identified barriers consistent with the observation of Kuhn and Kemper. This tension reflects a structural problem in teacher training programs, where expectations for the development of critical thinking do not always translate into effective pedagogical practice. Furthermore, the literature highlights that critical thinking requires specific pedagogical approaches, such as the use of open-ended question and collaborative problem solving. However, participants noted that these strategies are often limited in their implementation due to a lack of teacher training and a focus of measure evaluative outcomes. This study identified strategies such as collaborative projects, open-ended questions, and teacher modeling as key tools for promoting critical thinking. These are consistent with theories emphasizing active reflection and practical applications. No until their effectivity depends on overcoming the structural barriers such as rigid curricula and the emphasis of standardized evaluations.
Longitudinal analysis, differences between first and third year students. The analysis suggests significant differences in the level of critical thinking skills development in the university context between first and third year students according to Bloom's taxonomy. In percentage terms, 75 of first-year student interventions reflect activity at the levels of understanding and application, while 60 of the third-year students' responses are at the evaluation and creation levels. This progression indicates that higher-level students have acquired more advanced skills facilitated by the exposure to reflective pedagogical methodologies. Barriers compared by year. First year, 70 of third-year students identified rigid curricula as a primary barrier, noting that the focus on standardized content limits critical exploration. Additionally, 40 highlight the lack of teacher modeling as an obstacle, reinforcing the perception that they lack practical examples to develop these skills. Third year, although they face similar barriers, third-year students demonstrate greater resilience in addressing them. In this group, 50 of the responses highlighted rigid curricula as a challenge, but with less emphasis compared to first-year students. Furthermore, 30% mentioned the lack of teacher modeling, showing a reduction compared to first-year students. On the other hand, 35% identified standardized evaluation as a significant barrier to implementing critical strategies in real context. Implications for initial teacher modeling. Scaffolded curriculum design. The longitudinal analysis revealed that 75 of first-year students operate at initial level of understanding and application, while 60 of third-year students progress through evaluation and creation. This progression suggests the need for a scaffolded curriculum design that incorporates progressive activities from basic to advanced skills. For instance, strategies such as the use of significant projects and open-ended questions can be gradually integrated, enabling students to transition from conceptual recognition tasks to those involving critical judgment and creativity. Teacher training. 35% of participants mentioned the lack of teacher modeling as a key barrier. This highlights the need to strengthen teacher training with a focus on reflective methodologies and modeling strategies. According to Brookfield, effective modeling not only promotes the internalization of critical skills, but also provides a practical framework for the application in a real situation. For example, only 20% of first-year students reported observing clear examples of critical thinking modeled by the teachers, compared to 50% in third year, suggesting increased exposure, but still insufficient to achieve widespread impact. Evaluation and national curriculum. The emphasis on standardized evaluation and adherence to a rigid national curriculum was identified as a barrier by 25% of first-year students and 35% of third-year students. This perception highlights the need for evaluation systems that value not only acquired knowledge but also metacognition and the application of critical skills in diverse contexts. For instance, 45% of third-year students noted that authentic projects such as problem-solving in real scenarios were key to developing and demonstrating their critical thinking.
Conclusions, key findings. Longitudinal differences in the development of critical thinking. The data analysis highlights substantial differences in the levels of critical thinking between first and third year students, evaluated according to Bloom's taxonomy. While 75% of first year students' interventions are concentrated in the basic levels of understanding and application, 60% of third year students' responses reach the higher levels of evaluation and creation. This progression underscores the importance of a progressive and structured curriculum that fosters the gradual development of critical thinking skills throughout teacher training. However, it also reveals that progress is not uniform, emphasizing the need for adaptive and differentiated pedagogical strategies. Structural barriers in teacher training. Among the identified barriers, curricular rigidity, the absence of teacher modeling, and the predominance of standardized assessments stand out as the main factors limiting the development of critical thinking. These barriers are more prominent among first-year students, with 70% identifying curricular rigidity as a significant obstacle that restricts the application of reflective methodologies. In contrast, third-year students demonstrate a greater capacity to overcome these barriers, attributed to their accumulated experience and greater exposure to reflective pedagogical strategies that foster resilience and adaptability. Pedagogical strategies for developing critical thinking. Strategies such as collaborative projects, open-ended questions, and teacher modeling emerge as fundamental tools for strengthening critical thinking in teacher training. 40% of third-year students highlighted that these strategies significantly contributed to their development, although they also pointed out the need for more consistent and systematic implementation. These methodologies not only promote the development of advanced cognitive skills, but also foster a culture of collaborative learning that enhances critical reflection and deep analysis. Gradual and progressive development of critical thinking skills. The study underscores the importance of a curriculum design that enables students to advance from basic skills such as conceptual understanding to more complex competencies like evaluation and creation. Currently, only 10% of first-year students' interventions reach higher levels, highlighting the urgent need to implement strategies that promote the early and sustained development of these skills. Strategies such as structured debates and significant projects should be widely integrated into the curriculum to ensure effective and sustained progression. Final reflections. The findings of this study highlight the urgency of implementing structural and pedagogical reforms that address existing limitations while leveraging emerging opportunities. Promoting an institutional culture centered on critical reflection and pedagogical innovation would not only enhance the quality of teaching, but also equip future educators with essential tools to effectively perform in complex and challenging educational environments.